pro-Bolsonaro rioters storm seats of power across the capital, Brasilia. And this would be the Congress, Supreme Court, presidential buildings. There are essentially rioters everywhere, 400 people. And assault on presidential palace, Congress challenges Brazil's democracy. If anyone is in Brazil watching this or have family and friends, I hope everyone is okay. This reminds me very much of the January 6th situation. Essentially, you have these people thinking that it's an illegitimate election, and essentially they're just storming the Capitol. Not many good things can be said about it, but we do have to mention it because it is happening, and I don't have other information other than it's going on right now. Also, too, people have asked me about what my thoughts on North Korea. I'll just share a few. So we're in South Korea, as you guys know. We just call it Korea, but South Korea. And essentially, the North, they just keep launching missiles over and over again. You can see this chart here. This is what I wanted to show you guys. Basically, like how different it is this year. It is, like, I guess, let me just look at the chart, like double, triple than what they were doing. So this becoming much more active. My feelings on this situation is they probably have some sort of deal with either China or Russia or both. Also, too, someone mentioned in the comments, which I think was really, really insightful, that North Korea could just be, testing a bunch of weapons in order to show them off, to sell them to Russia. Which could be a real thing. I have no idea if that is in fact the case, but that is could be a thing. And the reason why I mentioned that is sometimes the American media just focus on only what Americans are doing and stuff like that. And some situations, say with North Korea, has nothing to do with USA at all and could be more China and Russia related. In business news, talking about China, there was this crazy situation where Tesla had lowered costs of their cars. And then you had all of these Chinese people basically go to Tesla dealerships and protest. There's been all sorts of pictures and things all over social media. But basically, think of it this way. If you bought a Tesla car, chances are you're part of the upper middle or upper class in China. And then suddenly the cost of said car goes down by 34%, something of that nature. You're pretty ticked off, right? People bought it just a few months ago, and Tesla just announced their second price cut in just a couple of months. And one of the things that also has been happening lately in China, just the mood of the people has been changing in terms of whether or not they will sort of express their frustration through protest. It is widespread during the whole lockdown situation, and I think this is just another thing of that. One of the things that my wife and I, we were talking about it as well. There's been footage going around, just any kind of, be it like a factory protest over iPhones, or there was another factory protest recently of like a vaccine thing where basically the workers are saying, hey, you're not paying us enough, or you're not paying us at all, kind of situation. And basically the message I want to get out to you is there's a lot of instability right now. It's just unstable. And, speaking of instability, regarding Tesla and stuff like that, article after article, talks about all of the competition, which I've been mentioning to you guys for a long time. And it's funny, finally, people are taking it seriously. I think it's because we're seeing sort of cracks in the armor of what we thought was, Tesla's armor, but it was obvious for a long time that there are other car companies in the world. Like, for example, BYD, this is a Chinese manufacturer. This was the one that was backed by Warren Buffett. They're going to be putting out like a sports car. You can see this here, and it actually looks like a pretty nice car. Now, I have no comments on if BYD is a good vehicle. I just don't know. I've never driven one or seen one in person. But, from this picture here, which I don't think is real, it looks like a render to me. It looks like a pretty cool design. Regarding Tesla as well, you're having more trouble at Twitter. It's like every day there's Twitter news. So I don't report it every day of the nonsense, but this was another situation where they're essentially firing more content moderation things. I've deleted my Twitter, made a video how to do that. If you want to do that, you can do it. But do be careful. They just got hacked recently, and I would worry about data. Now, moving on to the U.S. and markets and things of this nature, layoffs is going to be the thing that we're going to be talking about in the year 2023. Now, January is supposed to be the highest month where companies and businesses, these sort of things, fire people. We'll see if that holds the case, but I think it could be throughout the year. So Goldman, they're saying they're going to fire like 3,200 people, and that will be the limit. So if you're a part of Goldman, obviously you're kind of nervous right now. I'm sure you guys understand. And there was a situation where Salesforce was firing people. They had like this big Slack meeting. I was reading through this thing, and basically, all the employees show up. It's a all hands on deck kind of thing, or I should say Zoom meeting, that is. And basically, I guess the CEO, Benioff here, I guess he was kind of making jokes, and like 10% of the workers are losing their jobs, and people were kind of like, and I mentioned the Slack thing, they were messaging each other in Slack, and they just really, I'm sure you guys understand this. You're not sure if you're going to keep your job or not, and you go to this meeting, and then he shows up late as well. I think he was like 27 minutes late, this kind of stuff. But basically, it just made him look like not a nice person. I'm just laughing at him. It's just like not a nice person. And I could say lots of bad words, but not a nice person. And the workers were upset by that. And so I think during these sort of tough times really shows the character of people and the character of your boss and how much they really do care about their workforce. And from reports, it didn't seem like Benioff cares. We're going to see a lot more of this kind of stuff. Essentially, a lot of companies overhired. Now, not every company, but a lot did. So, for example, this is an interesting chart. It was looking at Amazon and Meta, and you can see that they were just basically, hiring since from this chart is from 2016. And Meta is the one that's cutting the most so far, but Amazon, just announced that they're going to be making cuts. And so we'll see if that continues. Google was another one that is sort of rumored that they may be letting go of people. Google's been known to be like a people-centric kind of place. They were one of the first companies that were offering, free food and all these sort of benefits and this sort of stuff. And this is sort of the changing landscape of work in the USA. I'm sure you guys know a lot of people work at home now, and so don't even go to these cool Google offices. But I remember, true story, when I was a professor, I was actually teaching business in Korea, and I would show students footage of workers at Google and kind of talk about the changing business culture and sort of, how you provide all these benefits to make happy workers make better. And Google has always sort of been the gold standard. But when Google starts cutting sort of these kind of benefits and maybe start laying off people, that is sort of like the figurehead of what used to be, I'll say used to be because I don't know going forward, but used to be the most desirable job in the USA. And this sort of gives you a sense of like how much hiring that Google has been doing. So, we'll see if they end up laying off. If they do, that'll probably cause a lot of ruptures. And the other thing is too is sort of like the way these things work is you fire people at the top, and they're going to start trickling down to looking for new jobs, et cetera. And it just makes it more competitive all the way around. Because I would make the case that maybe Google workers are some of our more sought after workers. That's a good way to say it, right? In our society. There's been articles about this as well, to where white collar workers and the phrase that I've heard a lot that people have been saying is redundant, right? Where like, as you guys know, with say the AI chat, open chat, GPT, AI chat, GPT, what I'm talking about. But basically, these sort of things are replacing white collar jobs the same way that in the past you had automation replacing blue collar jobs. And so at the moment, as I talked about in the video before, I feel like there's more chance to say work at McDonald's than there is a work at Goldman. And so we'll see, because one of the things that I also think is coming as well is the continued automation of blue collar jobs. There's just basically, we're more efficient as people these days. We need less people. It's going to create a lot of turmoil, frustration, instability in our world. Now, talking about in markets in particular, though, companies are going to be laying off in order to cut their costs, right? And when you cut costs, the idea is that you bring earnings up. And essentially what Wall Street's going to be looking for, we have earnings coming in this week, is how much companies make. Now, word in the street is that earnings aren't going to be so great. However, how this always plays out is, Wall Street tries to kind of predict and price in what they think is going to happen, right? So my expectations are earnings aren't great, but is that already priced in? It depends who you ask. I still think we're a bit overvalued, but like I said, it depends who you ask, and I can't read the future 100%. But when you see, like, say, we're talking about, say, the Tesla example, when they're struggling, it's hard for me to imagine that other companies are doing well. However, you never know. This is why it's the stock market. If I could read the future 100%, it would be so easy, but it's not. Just I want to give you a sense of where we are. As you can see here, we had a big dip in earnings due to the pandemic, and we had a crazy rise to the stimulus stuff like that, and we're starting to cool off a bit. And essentially, markets go up and down, and they'll eventually find their fair values. Just have a general sense of where we are. Another thing that was really interesting as well was an interview with Adobe CEO, and basically this is something that I mentioned to you guys before. There's going to probably be a lot of big companies buying the smaller companies. This is something that he was talking about. And I think they bought this Figma thing, and actually the CEO of Figma went to my school, Brown, and it's like $20 billion sales. So if you have a choice and you're CEO of a company and someone offers you $20 billion for your company, my suggestion would be probably take the money, especially in this market. It's hard to turn down $20 billion, although to be fair, if you were to take the path of, say, like a Mark Zuckerberg and maybe, he got offers to sell out Facebook, early on. He didn't, and that was the right choice. But and right now in this economy, I'd probably just take the money and run. I think Adobe paid way too much for Figma. Like 20 billion is kind of crazy. But I do think we're going to see more of these kind of acquisitions because essentially I'll give you an example. So like a DraftKings, I think is an interesting one that I think Google may or may not ever buy. Or something of this nature, because I think that there's going to be some value in those type of companies, and they're going to drop so far down in stock that someone will come in and buy them. I'm not saying it is going to be DraftKings, but I'm saying there'll be these kind of opportunities, or some companies will just completely fail, and we'll laugh and in the future be like, why do you want to buy DraftKings at all? Also, too, talking about things going up and down and stuff like that. I guess lumber has been really crashing. I remember when we were through that crazy housing bubble, essentially, when everything was going to the moon, and houses were horribly expensive, and price of lumber was a big part of that. But I guess now that the housing market has really cooled, so have lumber prices. So if anyone is in the community that is involved with lumber, paper, these kind of things, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If you think it's going to be going like this for a while, how people are talking about these things. But evidently this is going to be scary for the lumber market. And I have this one as well, which is really funny. I have heard about these things and I've seen them, but I didn't realize it was such a big thing. Evidently, the market for non-alcoholic drinks has been like doubling, tripling, whatever. And there's been this sort of phraseology. I guess I should make a separate video about it. But the phrase is sober curious. So there's a movement of people to like stop drinking. And full disclosure, I don't drink that much anymore. I drank a bunch in college, like every other college student. But as I got older, just my body changed. I still drink a little bit myself, but I don't know. The idea for me of say alcohol-less beer always sounds strange to me. But I guess some people actually do like the taste of beer. And to be very frank, I do, but only if there's alcohol in it. So I'd be kind of curious your guys' feeling about non-alcoholic beverages, non-alcoholic IPAs, this sort of thing. And if you think that's trending in your neck of the woods, but evidently it is a real market and it's growing, or this could be all BS. But according to this, it is a growing market. So anyway, this has been your daily news. I do appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.